Yeah, it's just live. Okay.
Yeah, and that's where we at.
Yeah. It's amazing.
They got coffee at the and we got sodas and water.
Okay.
We're gonna start in about 1 minute, so grab your snacks, grab your sodas. Donuts if you want them. I hear the peanuts are from the farmlands of Northwest Florida, is that the correct?
From the pink
I was making
farmers.
that, well, I was making that up.
Hey, sounded good.
From the farmers of Northwest Florida.
Good sales. Just make it up.
Well, in the military, it was like, fake it till you make it.
Yeah, the peanuts are still from Alabama, they're fresher from Florida.
That's where Ty's down here about doing that.
I've gotten a couple of your little postcard things in the mail. We looked at 49 acres they got listed up there on the highway.
Okay.
And I got one the other day for 2.6 acres or somewhere.
Yes.
Did you get a chance to look at that at all?
Yeah, on Laird Road.
Is it layered?
Layered,
Okay.
uh-huh.
Yeah, I didn't look at it real close. I had lunch in there that day.
Okay. Perfect.
Yeah, 49 acres got a nice way back in here.
Yeah, yeah. We took a, what we call a field trip and went to all the properties, so we did new videos,
Oh,
new
is that-
pictures and all that.
Oh, wow.
So we're actually walking the property and
Yeah.
checking things out. Yeah, some property things out there.
Busy place. I guess is there a drive for big tracts of land now with the hemp stuff going on and?
Yeah, with a lot of applicants came by and people just really wanted to get off the grid.
Yeah.
They're just really moving out there and they got on site and, farming the rest or just, tunnel in.
So a lot of homeless people down here. He was down there, he started college down there, you know, about 7 or 8 weeks ago, and a hurricane hit, so he's got to come to good old Mossy. His apartment's the roof, part of the roof came off, soaked the ceiling, whole place turned to mold and mildew. That was in October.
Oh, yeah, where we got in, Manhattan.
Oh, no, it's not.
Arbor Trace Apartments, yeah, real nice place.
Oh, yeah.
Told my wife a couple weeks before that happened, I said, I'm gonna get tired of it. I see all different restaurants down there, Pier Park, a lot going on. Yeah, went to a couple car shows down there, Pier Park was kind of fun. It was a nice area. And then, of course, we had ate a toucans about 3 weeks before the hurricane came through, and then it's just a slab right there, it's gone. Totally gone. We look at some of the newer houses back on that little bayou, just know what the toucans.
Right. Were they still there?
Or brand new sub, I don't know, we haven't been back that far yet. We went as far as the apartment, cleaned it out. There was just, insulation everywhere, 5 inches of water in a couple of the rooms, and carpet soaked. Oh yeah, they gutted it. And then I called to see if, he was interested, because he got first dibs at, re-renting it. But he's already enrolled here in Northwest Florida. So, yeah. In fact, he might be able to help you out one day. He's got his drone license.
Oh, no kidding.
I don't know how much
Yeah.
photography stuff, but he's kind of interested in real estate,
Okay. Absolutely.
into the drone stuff, and yeah, it's a couple different directions he wants to go.
Awesome.
Awesome. Well, anything, if you've got questions or no, definitely come see us. We're trying to get up on these, use the land tonight. And,
Oh, is that right?
oh, yeah.
Ready?
Yeah.
Yes.
Going in the right direction.
And we're live.
Good morning, everybody. Just as a disclosure, if you didn't know, it is Facebook Live, so we can pass this information out to other interested parties that, because of the weather, might not have been able to come. Some are in some areas where it got a little heavy with rain. Again, I'd like to welcome everybody. This is Responsiveness is our annual event that we have, and again, if you didn't know, this is Ken Wright, Erica Wright, and Dee Seffner with Platinum Lifestyle Professionals, and we partner up with Farm Credit Northwest Florida. Been a great partner over the years, and a lot of things we like to do is probably dispel the myths, and I'm going to let Mike and his crew do that here shortly, because a lot of people don't think you need to go to them just to get a farm. They have a lot of options there. So So anyway, again, I'd like to thank everybody. Little idea who we are. One is I'm Ken Wright. I am actually one of those unique people. I'm a native to the area. Went to high school here, but also served in the Coast Guard for 20-something years. But probably my introduction into real estate. My last year after I served quite a bit in the Coast Guard and more of the exciting stuff, I was asked to oversee the real estate from Key West to South Padre Island. I thought I was being punished, but actually it was a great experience because I interacted with a lot of real estate companies throughout that panel. So that opened the door to me to come back home and do this. That's what's going on. Of course, Erica, not only is she's a great marketing and operations runner, she's actually a former lender. So she knows most of the lingo that we have, and has been a resident here as well since 2005. Kirsten, then we got Dee. Dee is she's probably a staple as well. Her husband is a 26-year military individual in the Air Force and retired here at Eglin. She's also dedicated as a military relocation professional. She's a former rental manager, and of course, again, been in the area since 1997. Why do we do this? If you haven't been watching the interest rates, the time is right, and then you're going to find out that Farm Credit has some options there that you didn't know they have. So it's one of the big things we found. We've had an uptick. We've sold a lot of real estate out in the rural area lately. Mostly the feedback we get is one is their 401ks have been doing well, and the other thing is that they're seeing some of the interest rates going down. So some of them said I also just need to get off the grid. So Farm Credit is going to help you get off the grid if you want that. I guess Erica gave me a quote to make you pass on. Why do you buy land? Because they ain't making it anymore. So that's why you need to be doing this, because it ain't going away. But I have seen some land being made out in the ocean somehow or another by the China, so maybe they have another way to do that. So anyway, we're going to try to walk you through the process. There's a couple phase ones we'll help with the selecting and education of that part of, and then hand it off to Mike and his crew here shortly to say, okay, here's what they can do for you. And it's a lot more extensive than what people might even think. So we got that going on. So a couple of things that we've done, and again, I have fun in the land because I grew up here, so most of this area I've trekked in some form or fashion, either hunt, fish, number of other things, just find a place to go, get away from it, all types of stuff, but it's always a great place to do. So a couple of the questions we like to sit down and find out what everybody's wanting to accomplish. One is, who is going to purchase a property? We have some people looking for other people, and there might be someone who needs to come back home. They're trying to get their family to come back here, and they might want to get out into the country area. It's beautiful, as you know. Having walked a number of it, people don't even know some of these little secret spots out there. So that's probably one of the key things that we look at. One is, what will it be used for? Of course, you got the agriculture. You might want to build out there. You might just want to go hunt it, get away from it all. That kind of stuff. Or it might be leisure, instead of being on the beach, you might want to get up out in the countryside. We actually have a couple of clients. One specifically just did it. He bought a couple 100 acres with 5 lakes on it. He's actually decided there's a group of people might want to not be on the beach, but go have a little cabin, do a little fishing. And so you take that same concept of vacation rentals on the beach and put that premises up here and up in the Bake area, and he's literally take a cane pole, get a can of corn like I used to do, and catch some brim, that kind of stuff. And he's offering that to local kids to get them more involved in it. So there's a couple that in the leisure side of things. Other thing is the time of purchases. We have seen that, like you said, when are you going to purchase? What might be available at that given time? Again, the market is dictating that. Some things are leaving sooner than later. Some of the areas that we find, they say, hey, it's time to sell. Rightfully so. I guess, like you said, things are going up. Prices are not going down. We've actually seen it, and it's just been an uptick. Again, supply and demand. There's not a lot of supply, but it's slowly trickling in. Normally, because of family members, we get a lot of people who have been inherited. Don't really. Like we have one in Colorado, and doesn't even know what it looks like and has no need for it, has no desire to come back. So we have a lot of those type of situations that happen. Part of it is that, again, I'm going to leave this to Mike. Some people have an idea where they can land, where they can't land. It's a little bit more widespread than they people might imagine. But what we also look at, whether this land is, we look at the jurisdiction. Jurisdiction meaning, is it in the city? Is it in the county? That kind of stuff. There's different rules. Probably part of that is because of zoning. What you plan goes back to, what do you plan on doing with this? And can it be allowed there? Again, it's a little more, in some areas, like in Walton County, is a little different than Okaloosa County. You can do different type of zoning. You might be able to do this over here, but you can't do it over here. The density is a little different. And density meaning is how many, if like we have one group that's buying a 40-acre parcel, it's designed where you can only have 4 residents on there, unless you get a variance from the county. In Okaloosa County, it's one resident per 1 acre. There again, depends on where these places are. There might be some other restrictions and that stuff going on. The other thing is the amenities. As you know, some of them are on paved roads, some are not. I have recently seen that Okaloosa County is looking at paving more roads. They've had a windfall in the state budget, and they're doing that in the county. So you can see some of these roads that were clay are going to turn into asphalt. So that gets them a little more accessible, especially if anyone's been around. You get off in some of these rainy days, and if it's not paved, it can be a little interesting, and you got to be aware of where your road's going, or hopefully the road's still there. That kind of stuff. So they're out there grading it from time to time, but we have a property that literally you have to go, there's an easement. An easement means the property owners that lead to the property, it's not a county road, that they have given them access to that property, but we literally had to drive through this 60-foot easement between 2 cornfields to get to it. But once we got there, it was like an oasis. It was beautiful, a creek running through it, and all kinds of stuff. So that goes back to, hey, if you're wanting to get away from it all, you're going to get away from it all. I'll joke a little bit, if you like into hunting, if you're sitting out there with 2 cornfields next to you and a creek, you can imagine the wildlife that's going to be sitting there. And there's a nice big,
Creek.
a creek as well, or anything, but there's also
A clearing.
a clearing that they have, that the Okaloosa Gas has. It's almost like it would be a killing field, not to be a thing, but it would be great for hunting, because it's going to be just corn that place and you'll have fun. You'll have great deer. The other thing is we look at is, why are you doing this? Is this an investment? You want to buy it, hold it, turn it around, let it go? Because like I said, some people who bought it years ago, and now the price per acre is what was then, what is now, and you turn a profit. Some people do that. There again, people are moving their money out of 401ks, teaming up and getting some very inexpensive money, and using that to their advantage, and getting a great windfall from the purchase as well as the sell later on. And again, back is it a personal use? Are you coming back home, going to put a house out there, leisure, whatever the case may be. So those are kind of things you're being to look at in that regards. What are some of the things we do? And again, I will introduce, got some my counterparts in the real estate world is here as well, and they all do a great job. But when you're going through the process, you need to know the property, meaning what has happened with this. Is it in an estate? Has it just been handed down to somebody? That kind of stuff. So when we go into that process, we try to do the research and say how much we know about this and why they're selling it. Again, as I mentioned earlier, the zoning. We want to make sure what you want is what you can do, and because it can be tricky. You don't want to be surprised after your close says, "Well, I was going to do this," and they come back and says, "Who said that?" So we're going to not necessarily just tell you, but we're going to get you directed to the people who make that decision. And I would recommend when you get that from the county, because we don't make the rules, we hand off to people who do make the rules. I would recommend they put it in writing. So, and I've done this many times. Say, hey, you tell me that you're going to be able to this. Well, send me an email. You, as a government official, has now said on record that I could do this. And they might be wrong, but they're mostly right. But you also want to have that little card there that you can play that says, well, hold on, because if you have to go to a county commissioner says, hey, I bought this under these conditions because your government official told me so. They would be in a very precarious situation, and that's what you want to make sure you take care of. Access to the property, like I mentioned before. Some are right on a county road, so you have easy access to it. The other thing is the easements, and those, having been here a long time, since basically the early 70s, you know, you got things that happened years ago that they're still correcting. And I can tell you from experience, we had a piece of property where back in the day, people used to survey from east to west, and some surveyed from west to east. And when they did it one time, it overlapped. And so therefore, this fence was in no man's land. And they had to decide who was right, who was wrong. Unfortunately, your title insurance, as we'll talk a little bit about, is what sort of takes care of that. But that still doesn't mean you're going to be right. It might be, you might be made whole by some financial adjustments. But that title insurance, again, is key, because they are almost like your car insurance. They're the ones there to protect that property in the boundaries of that survey. So a lot of people say, I don't need that. Big mistake in today, especially in land, because you have these issues that come up that you want to take care of. Because the last thing you want to do is buy, again, a piece of land thinking you're going to have this house sit right here, and they find out you're in someone else's land according to their survey. So hopefully you can get those resolved. 9 times out of 10, basically you'll have an attorney working for you free of charge because you already bought the title insurance to cover that. That other person might not, but they're going to try to resolve and say, hey, how about this? We'll make this go away if we split the difference, or you give it up because you're going to lose, or whatever the case may be. Those are the kind of things I strongly recommend that you look at title insurance in regards to that. Utilities. Again, when you're out in the countryside, there's not always TV cable out there. And I can tell you from what we're seeing here, now there is satellite. Most people have satellites, but what's the thing that people don't necessarily have and they want and need? Internet. Now granted, some of the satellites says they got great internet. Check it out. If they might have it, it could be very expensive. So, but again, those are a utility we always thought of just electric and gas or water, but in today's world, internet is basically the way of life now. So you definitely need that. Other thing in regards to the areas, most of the areas that we have here is Chelka, which is a co-op. There is a couple of places that Gulf Power, so you want to make sure there is access to power. The thing is, most cases you might have power to the property. However, we have one right now that the property is 40 acres square, but they want to put their house in the middle of it. Well, from the electricity is right at the doorsteps on the road, but to get the cost from there to the middle of that property is on your dime. And you'll have to work with that particular co-op. Now again, there is some motivation on their point. They want someone who's going to be paying electricity bills. So you'll need to work with them, and who's going to do some of the work, who's not going to do some work, how much they'll do, how much and how much you can have done with a contractor. Those are the kind of things that you'll look at to see to minimize your cost. Again, we can offer some advice, give points to the directors, because we have a lot of people we work with that does that. So you definitely want to, again, that's electricity. Gas, same thing. A lot of people like gas, but there again, it might not be as easily accessible. But there again, you can get you hooked up into those situations. And the other is water. The water is, again, one of the lucky part, and maybe Mike will allude to, and some of these folks who deal with farmland, we sit on one of the best things around here. It's called the aquifer. And so wells are almost predominantly what people use. There is accessible to certain public water, especially Mossy Head. You got Mossy Head water and so on. But again, when you're sitting on, if you just want to go deep enough, you probably have some of the best water in the area. And it don't seem to be, especially with this latest rain or any of the latest rain we've had over the years. I don't think it's drying up anytime soon. In fact, I think we've seen some places where sinkholes are happening because we've got so much water underneath us. But there is an opportunity to do that. So I just want to look at, again, is there public water? And even out in the countryside they do. Like I said, Mossy Head water, why did they do it? Why are they spreading their footprint? hey, it's money they're gonna sell. However, we dealt with a lot of our folks, they mostly just prefer to have the well. Of course, the water's free, you just gotta get the well deep enough to where you're comfortable with what the quality that you want. The other thing is probably more importantly in utilities is sanitary. Sanitary meaning is where is some of the waste that you're using going. Again, I think the latest number, I'm pretty close to it. In our area, 80% of the whole county is actually close to having septic tanks. There's some schools of thought whether that's an environmental issue or not environmental. So I've heard two schools of thought. Some people, there's more energy being used and more environmentally impacted by power companies because they just, there's coal and all that kind of stuff they use to generate it. Or the fact is some of the impact that the septic tank might have on the environment. That's a school of thought. You can look into that kind of thing. But the most part is, what your sanitary use will be, whether you're going to use a septic or have the ability to tie into one of these situations, whether it's through a municipality that has reached out a little bit further to get more customers on their thing. I am going to stop now, and I'm going to turn it over to Mike, and he's going to introduce his staff. And now this is where he can tell you, now that we've figured out how you can go find the property, he's going to find you the money and get you the money from here on out. So, Mike.
All right. Thanks, Ken. I feel like a preacher passing off the speaker,
No plate going around.
No plate going around today? Okay. Well, I really appreciate the opportunity to be here today, and I want to thank Ken and Erica, Dee, and all the staff here for hosting us here today. And I will say that, we have a lot of real estate partners that we work with across our region, and I will say that this particular group, I don't know that I've found anybody that has any more excitement about what they're doing than this group. And it's really a pleasure and a joy to be able to work with them and see their level of excitement about what they're doing. So, as we're here today, I want to introduce some staff that's with us here today. First of all, Lisa Andrews, who is our marketing manager for our association, is here with us today. Ms. Sue Pudsey, who is our home mortgage lender here in our region, as well as she has some other roles with our company. We have Mark Waggy with us today, who is an agribusiness lender in our western part of our territory. And both of those will be speaking with you here shortly about some of the things that we have to offer. But I just want to say before I get into too much that I especially want to thank Lisa and Erica for coordinating this. And this would not be possible without them, I can assure you. Erica was picking on me earlier about what we would do without Lisa, and I said nothing, because if it was left up to me, we would not have this. But so anyway, before we get into some of the nuts and bolts, I guess, of what we actually do, I guess I would just like to ask the question: prior to this week or prior to today, how many has actually heard of Farm Credit? Okay, not many. We have one. But I just wanted to give just a very brief overview, first of all, of who we are and what we're about. And then we're going to kind of get into the nuts and bolts of what we can do and how to go about doing it. So first of all, Farm Credit, we're Farm Credit in Northwest Florida. Farm Credit was actually established a little over 100 years ago by President Wilson. And he actually signed into legislation to create the first federal land bank way back in 1916. Well, the primary purpose of that was to provide credit to rural America. Back then, there were so many places that did not have access to credit. And so over the years, now I won't go through all the transformations, we don't have time for that today, but over the years, it's transformed to today what is known as the modern day Farm Credit System, which has associations in all 50 states and including Puerto Rico. And so what that means is is we have, because we're a large system, we're not a commercial bank. And that is what's different or separates us from a lot of lenders. We are not a commercial bank. We are actually a government-sponsored enterprise. And if you know what a government-sponsored enterprise is, basically it's a private company with a public mission. And some that you may be familiar with, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, heard of those guys? Well, they're a government-sponsored enterprise, and so are we. We just happen to be the largest at the moment. And we have around $330 billion, with a B, in total assets in our system. So what that equates to, for folks like you and me, is today we're probably around the 6th or 7th largest bank, if you will, in the nation, which is pretty powerful if you get thinking about it. So the way that Farm Credit works is that we are member owned, and we are broken down into individual associations across the states and across the country. And so Farm Credit Northwest Florida covers from Escambia County over in the west all the way through Madison, Taylor County to the east. So pretty big territory geographically. So that is Farm Credit of Northwest Florida, and that's who we are. And so, you know, one of the things that makes us unique is, like I said, we have access through the Farm Credit system to a lot of capital, a lot of things that maybe some local or smaller community or commercial banks may not have access to. So the primary, one of the things that makes us unique is that we're broken down into basically three different departments, if you will. We have our agribusiness department, which, as Ken alluded to, we do a lot of land loans from anywhere from 10, 20 acres to thousands of acres across our territory. We also have our home lending department, or sometimes we call it country mortgages, where we do a lot of home loans and homes with land associated with it. And then we also have what we call our capital markets department, which means what a lot of people don't realize is we also participate in very large syndicated deals. And what I mean by that is let's just say most of you have heard of Sanderson Farms or Purdue Chicken, things like that, some big players in the market. Well, when they're offering debt out in the market, somebody has to take it, right? Well, we also are able to participate in those type of deals as well. So I guess what I'm telling you is, as Ken alluded to earlier, we're a bit more than just loan you money for 10 acres or whatever. There's a variety of things that we do here at Farm Credit Northwest Florida. So I just wanted to kind of give you a little bit of a background and a structure of how what we do here and how we're a little bit unique. And as we go through, I don't want to take up all of our time talking about us. What I really want you guys to kind of get at today is the things that we can offer you, whether you're an agent or a possible buyer, and how to go about it. That's what most people want to know, is how do I do it, and how complicated is it, and all this kind of stuff. And fortunately, Ken's already touched on a lot of those things already. So as we go through this process this morning, I just want you to think about some things as Sue and Mark speak to you for a few moments. I want you to watch a short video, and some of these things has already been brought out, but just be thinking on some things, and then if you have any questions at the end, we'll be happy to answer them. But before we get into the other presentations, take a look at this short video. You ready?
Yeah, it's working. It must be real. Yeah, it's spinning. Yeah, actually, yeah, it was already up there. It's actually down here.
Hey, this is Jesse Dumas with Farm Credit of Northwest Florida. Do you have a dream of owning that special piece of land or maybe home in the country and you're just not sure where to begin? I want to talk with you about a few things you should consider before making that very special purchase. First, is the land compatible with your long-range plans? Do you have specific ideas for your land, such as growing a crop, having horses or livestock, or maybe you're planning to deed part of your land to a son or daughter for their home? Before you buy, make certain that the size and composition of the tract, its soil, and any zoning restrictions all support your plans. Working with a real estate attorney or title company can help ensure that you receive clear title to your property. Obtaining an owner's title insurance policy and understanding the items listed in it can help you avoid surprises, such as others who may have mineral reservations or right to access your property. A real estate attorney can also recommend that taking title to your property in an entity such as a limited liability company would be advisable to help you manage potential liability. You will want to make certain that your property has both legal and physical access. Ensuring the legal right to access your property is important, but make sure you don't stop there. You'll also want to know that in all types of weather, you're able to physically access your property through that same legal access point. Finally, financing property in the country can be a little different from a traditional home. Often due to acreage limitations, these loans are serviced by your local lender rather than being sold to an investor. As a result, the interest rate may be a little higher than advertised home loan rates. Additionally, some lenders may only be able to fix your interest rate for a few years, or may even tell you that the home you own has too much land with it for them to be able to finance it at all. At Farm Credit, our loan products are designed for rural buyers and include options not commonly available. These include truly long-term fixed rates and no acreage limitations on homes. Every day, Farm Credit helps people make their dream of life in the country come true. Our rural lending experts would love to help you decide with confidence and avoid common mistakes when buying your property in the country. Please visit us online at gorural.net or give us a call at 855-GO-RURAL.
All right. So you heard probably some common themes there that Ken had shared as well, and some of the things to think about or look for, when you're buying rural property. So some of the things that we want to get to this morning is, if you're looking for this type of situation, or for you agents in the room, if you have, a potential buyer, some of the things that you're going to want to know is what are these guys looking for in terms of information? What are some things we need to be thinking about? Where do I get that information? And for crying out loud, why do they need it? Why are they asking for it? So those are some of the questions we hope to answer this morning, both whether you're looking for a home with land, or whether you're looking to buy, a larger tract of land, the 30, 40, 60, even hundreds of acres. So, we hope to answer some of those questions this morning. So with that said, I'm going to introduce Ms. Sue Pudsey, and she's going to speak to us for a few moments on the home lending process and what's entailed there. And then Mark's going to follow her and talk to you about the rural land process. And then hopefully there'll be plenty of time at the end to accommodate questions. Sue?
Thank you. Well, I'm Sue Pudsey, and I am the rural home loan expert, if you want to call it that, person. And I handle the rural residential loans. So what I see a lot of are homes in the country, homes with lots of acreage that other banks can't do, so we kind of have that niche. And then large acreage people will buy specifically to build a home on. So that's what I do in our office, and right now it's very, very busy. There's a lot of people wanting to construct homes. There's a lot of people that are looking to go to the country. So, and that's what we do. The process for getting any kind of residential loan is so different than our ag loans, which is what Mark and our ag loan department does. We have to have like a 1003, we have to have tax returns, we ask for a lot of information. Underwriters will usually come back for more, but generally speaking, if you get a complete package to us when we start the process, that makes it much better. So we have a checklist of items that you get in, the more you bring in, at the beginning of it, the faster the process goes. So, that's what, you know, you can gather your information at home, where you get it, you know, you got your tax returns, if you have an accountant that you use, anyone that can get the information for your loan. The more you have together when we meet with you, the better prepared we are to get things done quickly on your loan process. Because generally speaking, it takes about 45 days from the time we get your complete package to the time we close. However, there are times when underwriters want more information, and probably a lot of you realtors have seen this before. But the tips for obtaining a loan, if you know your credit score, if you know if you've had past history, share that with your lender. Let them know that there could be some possibilities of I've had maybe some hits on my credit. All of that plays into it, and then have good bookkeeping, have your tax returns and everything ready when you come in to meet. And ask questions along the way. And we need this information because there is an act that in 2010, Congress created a federal agency called the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau, and that enacted a number of new laws to regulate the home mortgage industry. So one of the regulations is the ability to repay the loan. So we have to verify everything. I mean, we have to, even if you turn in tax returns, we have to make sure, we have to get copies from the IRS to verify what you've given us so that there's no issues along the way. Our underwriters will review the application to consider factors in the loan approval in order to comply with the ability to repay regulations. So, there's a lot to rural residential, well, to any residential loan. It's not like I said, with an ag loan, you can just get some information in. I mean, they verify tax returns and everything, but when you're considering your home, they're very, it's a lot more intense. So the benefits of working with Farm Credit is we do have the ability to finance a home with lots of acreage. A lot of the lenders want you to cut out an acre or 5 acres. I just did a loan on a house on 100 acres, so that's not a problem with us. And that's kind of our niche. That's most of our calls. Construction loans are very popular now. Like I was saying, we have people that buy acreage and then come back to us for construction loans. So we have what you call a one-time close fixed rate construction loan that's very popular now, where we lock your rate in up front, and that rate is the same during construction. You pay interest only, and then at the end you still have that rate and when we modify it. So it's like a one-time close. It's not like 2 closings, a lot of them have. So we have a testimonial that was with someone from our eastern region that actually got a loan for a home, and also she has like a farm on it that's very interesting. So
Is it a problem? Yeah, it's the only public item, but it's okay. And I just.
My husband Carrie and I and our dog Sky moved to Madison, Florida about a year ago. We had a great help moving to the area through Farm Credit. This really helped us be in the environment that we wanted to live in and not be in the city anymore where we could work from home. Some friends of ours lived in this area, and we've been visiting for 20 years. We absolutely fell in love with the location. the peacefulness, just being out where there wasn't a bunch of traffic in the city. I've had horses almost my whole life, and I really wanted to be back in a place where I could have the horses on my own property. We started visiting Farm Credit when we would come down to visit our friends, and it was like we were old friends from our very first meeting. They were so helpful. We knew that we wanted to use Farm Credit instead of a traditional mortgage company. They just felt like they were family right from the get-go. Our lender worked with us daily. Anything that we needed, she was so responsive to us. We actually had an opportunity to buy another property at first, and when that didn't go well, immediately Farm Credit was right there to help us transition to a new property and help us with a long distance closing from our other location where we were in North Carolina. Because we were over 500 miles away, it could have been a logistical problem, you know, with all the paperwork and everything that we needed to do, but Farm Credit made it so simple for us. We were able to communicate electronically, over the phone, and it just made it seamless for us and made it so easy to transition from one location to another. It didn't feel like I was working with a credit lender. It felt like I was working with family or friends to get what we wanted, and we wanted to be in the country. We knew that, and they were so helpful in getting us there.
We have a lot of customers that just love the country and want to live in the country, so, you know, that's kind of what we are experts in, so. But we're gonna, introduce Mark Waggy. He's gonna come up and talk about land loans. Did you have a question?
Sorry, I might have missed this, but did you say you do construction perm?
We do, a one-time fixed rate construction perm loan. That's actually what's super popular right now in our area over in Santa Rosa County.
Right.
They're buying, like I said, large acreage, and we don't make you cut out an acre, so we can do that. And like if they have a loan somewhere else, we can refinance that into it. Or we also offer, if you find a property, we can get a contract for that land and a contract from your builder to build, add them together and finance up to 95%. So in the first closing, we pay off the person that's selling the land, and then we, have your construction going. So we have a list of approved builders, but if there's a builder that's not on our approved list, we'll be glad to. There's an application that they have, and we, get them approved, and so that's what's real popular right now in our area. But of course, like I said, I did a home recently. I financed and closed a home loan with a house on 100 acres in Walton County. So,
And then you have this flyer
and we have a flyer. There's a flyer there that talks
all the
about
different
that
home
too.
loan products we offer.
What's your rate right now on a construction/permit?
As of yesterday, it was 4.5 for a 30-year.
Wow.
So that was, and people say, well, that's a little slightly higher than what we're hearing or we're seeing. But because if you wanted to just get a house in the country, it'd probably be more like around 4,
Is that like 10% down or 20% down? What do you have to have for one of those loans?
For the construction to perm, we can finance up to 95%, so 5% down plus closing costs. So now that's with our investors. If perhaps for whatever reason it doesn't fit into the secondary market, we can still finance it at Farm Credit. We do 85% financing there. So we have various options. Some more? Any other questions? This is Mark Waggy, and he's the guy that does the ag loans in the office. So,
Thank you, Sue. My name is Mark Waggy. I am a rural land expert, and I would just like to tell you that I did come from a commercial bank, and the loans that we do, the products we have, they are a lot of different products that we couldn't do as a commercial bank. We couldn't do the long-term fixed financing for just ag land, property recreational. So we do have some unique products that that are available. And today I'm going to try to talk to you about what it takes for the process of obtaining a loan from Farm Credit to get property. I mean, how many of you know people that want to just get out of the city, want to get away, they want to just have maybe a piece of property to ride their ATVs or raise small animals, they want to get their kids out, of the city and have something to do. Well, that's what we do. We specialize in that type of land. And that we don't do just farmlands. That's, I think a lot of people think because it's Farm Credit that we're just specialized in farming. Well, we do recreational properties. We do crop land. We do timber land. Just all types of property that we can do, and we do have the long-term fixed rates. You can go 10, 15, 20 years, which is an option that most places they want to do a balloon type note on it. So I'm going to talk about the what's needed for a rural land loan. And I'll say that the more information we get up front, when we'll send out an application, and we'll send out all the information that we need to get you started. And to get all of that back at once, it makes the process a lot faster. We don't have to piecemeal to our analyst, and it just makes it smoother for the transaction and the aggravation of, oh, hey, I need this, and so we like to get that back, and it does make it easier. Normally what we have is 3 years tax returns, and this is personal, and if you own a business, if you own 25% or more of a entity, we get 3 years tax returns of that, plus your P&L, and we get a balance sheet, and that balance sheet is just going to list all your assets, all your liabilities. We like you to break down the like your payment structures, what you're paying on your interest, your monthly payments. All of that is used by our analysts to come up with the credit worthiness of the loan. We also get a W-2 from, if you're salary, we get at least a couple last month's pay stubs, and also for verification of your down payment, we like to get a bank statement, or wherever your money for that down payment's coming from, we like to get where that is, just to show that you have the verification of the liquidity in it. If it's for a business, for say a farmer, we like to get the farm plan, we like to get the business plan, and we like to have a detailed, am I talking loud enough? Okay.
I verified we can hear you online too.
Okay.
You're good.
That's why I keep going out.
Okay. And where do you get the information from that you provide us? It's from your records. It's your bookkeeping, it's your accountant. A lot of times we can have your accountant send it directly to us. They can do it secured email, so that you're not having to get it from him. You take it and you send it to us. You can email, all the application. You can email all the information to us, and we can get it that way. And we do have it secured, so it's not out there in the open. I don't even know if I'm up with that. And why do we need all the information? It is to determine the credibility, or the credit worthiness. That's the first step, is to make sure that you you qualify for the credit purpose of it. And then that's when we go to the next step. And once we get the credit worthiness part of it, then we'll let you know, say, okay, this is the next step, and we go on from there. Let's see, record keeping, that is very important when you are trying to get a loan. That's with us or with anyone. The better the records, the more efficient they are, the better it is for our analysts to get that information and use it. Because we take it and we turn it over to the next one. And so they'll usually ask us, and then we ask you. So record keeping, if you have a software that you can use on your computer, which most people are using that now, that does make it a lot easier. And I would recommend that before you go looking for your property, to get pre-qualified, just, you know, and pre-qualification is just where you call us and you say, I'm looking at this piece of property for this amount. This is what I make, this is what I owe. And so that's basically what that is, that we can say, okay, you're qualified for this amount up to, you'd say 100,000, and this is what you can look, this is what piece of property that you can afford, and it kind of gives you a little more specific in what you can, you know what you're looking for. And let's see, and just quickly, what some of our processes for the approval part is, we do the 5 C's of credit. I think probably everybody's heard what they are. They are character, capacity, capital, collateral, and condition. And this is what we use to determine your ability to obtain the loan. Character just refers to your reputation or your track history of being paying people, and you know, making sure that everything is good on that. Capacity is your ability to repay us. You know, years ago they used to do collateral loans. That got a lot of people in trouble because you know, they would be land rich and cash poor. So now, you know, we're pretty strict on making sure that you have the ability to repay that loan and not just use the collateral as your repayment resource. Capital, this is what you're going to put into the property, what your down payment is. You know, in the more you put into a piece of property, the less risk that is associated with it. So it may help you with your rate or your terms by doing that. Your collateral, that's just what you're going to use for security. That's your property. And the conditions, that is talking about not only your financial condition, but the conditions of the economy, the conditions of what you're going to use that piece of property for. You know, if it's a specific piece of property that let's just say you're going to do a chicken farm. There's not a lot you know, of people out there that can do a chicken farm. You have to know what you're doing. You have to be familiar in that business. So all those things is what we look at as far as the 5 C's of credit. When we're doing the credit, we're doing a risk assessment by all of those things that we just talked about, all of the 5 C's, the conditions, and all of that. That is just what we're looking at to get that. And then if it's for a business purpose, we look at the equity position, which is just the difference between the market value and what you owe on that piece of property. And so the better equity position you have, the better for it. Working capital is just the liquidity that you have for your daily operations. So, you know, a really good working capital certainly helps. Debt coverage ratio, that is just your cash available for your servicing of the interest, the principal, and if you for lease payments. And then we talked about the loan to value. That is just what the value of the property versus what you owe on it. And the debt, the loan to value, the lower loan to value is better as far as your risk. It may affect your rate, it may affect your terms, it's, you know, things such as that. And we also look at current ratios. You can see the current assets minus your current liabilities is your working capital. Again, your working capital is what you use to do your daily, day-to-day operations. Your equity and your divided by your total assets is your equity. The more equity in it, the better. You know, as far as that goes. And then your debt coverage, and that is just your total income minus your family living expense divided by total and interest. And just some of the key points to obtaining a business loan is definitely have a business plan. If you're a farmer, you have a farm plan. You know, we need to see some historical production from you. The first, you know, big thing is showing that you have a positive cash flow, and you know, also understanding your financial situation. And when we get into it, we try to learn as much as we can about what you're doing and what you've been doing and about that business. It makes it a lot easier when we're trying to, give you a loan for that. Build cash reserves, that helps a lot. And then always check your credit history. You can go out there once a year and go to www.annualcreditreport.com, and that just gives you an idea. Well, it also checks to make sure that nobody's been using your credit, using your name, because it's nothing worse than when you get to the loan officer and you pull it up and there's a surprise that you didn't know was out there. One thing that pops up all the time is like medical collections, that people don't even realize it's out there. They think their insurance is taking care of it. But just little things that if you know what your credit looks like when you come in, it does make it a lot easier for us to work with. The process to obtain a loan is the first thing we do is we get an application from you. And that application is going to list what your purpose is. It's going to ask your name, address, all your pertinent information like that. And then we, if you want a pre-qualification or if you want a full approval, pre-approval, pre-qualification is just where you give us the information, and it's just a letter saying that, with the information you gave us, this, it doesn't tie you into that as a contract, but it's just saying that upon getting the rest of the information, this is what you're approved to. Now, pre-approval is when we actually get your tax returns, we get your financial information, we get all that pertinent information, and we do the analyst gets it, and then we come back, and you're pre-approved, and that's contingent upon the appraisal, title, clear title, if you have to have a survey. And then once we get the approval, then we do the commitment letter. And that's just going to basically give you the terms of your loan and what we've decided and what you've agreed upon. Survey. Is a survey needed? My suggestion is that anytime you buy a piece of property, you get a survey. Some people think they don't need it because it's been in the family for 50 years or 25 years, and then you don't know if there's, I've had one where it has been in the property 50 years, we get it back and it's not quite in their name. And for all these years they thought it was. So it took about 6 months, and it was fortunate that no one had passed away that needed to sign, because that is a big problem to get all that taken care of. Also, the survey, lets you know about legal and physical access to the property, and also there may be, encroachments that you may not know. You can walk the property and it looked just fine, but the survey is going to tell you exactly what you own, and you want to know exactly what you own when you buy a piece of property. And after you have the survey, then we have the bids on the appraisal, and we send to 2 or 3 different appraisers, and we get a bid, and they usually tell us the time and how much, and so we will decide which one would be the best. Necessarily the cheapest is not always the best. So we try to do what's right for the consumer that comes in. Then once we get that, then we select the appraiser, and this is one of the fees that we, on my part at least, on the ag side, is we get that up front. And the reason we do it is because if that property doesn't appraise for the purchase price, then that customer may back out, and that appraiser's already done the job. He's already done the research, and now there's an appraiser. And even if he backs out, he gets a copy because he paid for it. But in my case, normally we do 80 to 85% of the purchase price or appraised value, whichever is less. And that's up to $400,000, and after 400, then we go to 75%, but it just depends on the whole package as far as that goes. So it just depends on what you do. And again, we can do, 10, 15, 1,000 acres, so we don't have a limit on that. And then once we get the appraisal done, it comes back, you accept it, it's good, then we, the survey also gives you the legal description. I didn't mention that, for the title company. And we also give that legal description to the appraiser. So once we get that, we order the title work, and that is started. And then once your title work is done, everything comes back and there's no issues, then we review the settlement statement. We go over that, everything's good. Then we schedule the closing, and then we close. Hopefully there's no issues on the title work, but and I always suggest that people get the owner's title policy, because when we do the loan, the policy is for us, but when the loan's paid off, for our part it's done. But if you have the owner's policy, it stays with them. So I always suggest that you get that, because I have had instances where 15 years down the road, they go to sell it, and there's been an issue that the title company may have misspelled somebody's name when they did the search, and it cost $30,000 to fix that mistake. But the title company had to take care of it. The types of properties that we finance, again, we do farmland, we do cropland, we do recreational vehicle. If you just want to get out and have you some property to let your kids have some space, if you want to raise some animals, we do all that type. We do timberland. We don't do like a CD, construction debris pit. We don't do pit, things like that. Where ours is rural, and that is our objective is for rural property. And we do, like Sue does, she does the rural homes, she does the land with the homes. A lot of places they make you cut out an acre of 50 acres to get it financed, where we don't have to do that. And so that's some of the things that we do that are different from commercial banks. And I think we have a testimonial.
When I first talked to Farm Credit, they were able to provide me with someone I could talk to and explain to them, what we wanted to do with the land and why, and they understood it rather than, just going by the book on what their lending practices were. The other lenders in the area, they were focusing, as I said earlier, on building homes on those rather than just buying land and using land for the resources that it has.
I'm a professor of environmental geology. I teach at Tallahassee Community College. My daughter is a fifth-generation Floridian, and the land was always very important to my family. And I wanted her to grow up understanding how important the land was too. This is prime restoration area for longleaf pines, and so we wanted not only her to know the land, but her to know the value of restoring and protecting it as well.
I was quite surprised. The first thing they said, well, let's go out, have somebody take a look at it and do an assessment, appraisal on the property, and then within a matter of just a couple of days, I heard back. Then they were pretty quick to offer us a great opportunity to a rate and schedule that we were all very comfortable with. Hopefully, long-term be able to expand on the family property and make it a much larger, more enjoyable piece to be around. Farm Credit basically takes everything out of your hands, and they make it very simple. They understand what you're trying to do. Everyone so far that I've recommended Farm Credit has used them, and I'm very pleased as well.
And that reminded me one thing too about when you're looking at your property and you go out and you walk it, don't just walk it. Go to these websites or Google and look at it from above. Because sometimes when you're walking, you may not see there's maybe a sewer plant or something, you know, on the other side of the trees, or there's a railroad track, or, you know, there may be a fence or something that you didn't know was out there. But when you go and you look from on you know, bird's eye, you can see a lot of that stuff, and it kind of gives you more clarity about what you're getting and what's on there. Also, you know, research, make sure there was no, you know, tanks or anything that's stored or anything like that that's out there. And know, again, just know what you're buying it for. If you want to, down the road, give some to your kids, make sure that it's something that you can do, that you can, you know, cut it out for them if that's what you're planning to do. And, you know, Farm Credit, I would just say that we try to make the experience of buying that piece of property a good experience, a happy, exciting experience, because it is stressful when you're buying some property. You know, there is stress there, but we want you to leave happy, understanding everything that you do, and knowing what you're getting, and knowing what your loan is all about. And you know, we consider ourselves rural experts about, you know, lending on the rural property. And like I said, we have a lot of options that other places don't give. And we do have a program called the Patronage Program, that what it is each year, if Farm Credit, we make a profit, the board can elect to give part of that profit back to our members as by way of part of the interest that they've paid. And normally that's usually around April, and it's not a guaranteed item, but you know, if we're doing good, we want to give back to our members and show them that we care, and we want them to have a good experience. And a lot of people, they do enjoy getting that check in April, and you know, they can put it back on the loan, or they can spend it, they can do whatever they want to with it. And that's something that we offer that is not offered by a lot either. So I think
I was just gonna mention, this past year, this year we gave back $4 million, and last year we gave back, it was $9 million.
$9 million. That's a lot of money. A lot of people were happy to get a check back from the place that they borrowed money from. So it is a good thing. And I'll just say that most of our customers are happy, and you know, there are sometimes things, you know, don't go as smooth as it should with title surveys or whatever, but I just like to thank you for your time. And
Do you ever do non-recourse loans?
no.
Do you resell mortgages at all?
Mike?
We don't resell a lot of our mortgages. You know, sometimes we may refer out to like a Farmer Mac or somebody like that, but it's, you know, we do a lot of participations where we may take a loan, and we may, for whatever reason, we may participate with another cooperative or another bank from another district or something like that, but we don't resell a lot of our mortgages, not on the agribusiness side.
Well, a lot of this interest in all the land now, is that mostly due to the hemp industry coming into Florida? And do you make loans for somebody who would go into the hemp business?
I don't think we have.
There's a lot of people that's interested in, you know, the 50 acre, 100 acre, 200 acre tracts. They're getting into, you know, big quasi zone stuff there.
Yes. Let me tell you, I'll address that. That is probably, you know, one of the hottest topics, you know, around the state right now. And certainly among lenders, as well as you know, business people looking to enter the industry. We think it's coming. We are looking as we speak. Lisa and others will tell you that we are looking closely at what we can and cannot do. In particular, you know, being a GSE, you know, we have to, there's certain regulations, of course, that we have to follow. Our our thought is it's coming, and our thought is that eventually that we're gonna enter into it probably whether we wanted to or not. And the reason I say that is because, as you might imagine, we deal with a lot of large agricultural producers who's looking to diversify, and we offer them lines of credit and things like that. And so sooner or later, it's probably gonna enter into our world, you know, in some form or fashion. But I will tell you that it is upon us. And as y'all know, there's been some recent laws passed in our state, you know, concerning the legality of it. And it's still from a federal level, though.
It's illegal.
We're still looking at, you know, some things, but we think it's coming very soon. And there's hardly a week that goes by. We were just talking about it before you guys come in today, because we have some folks trying to get through some classes on that. But there's hardly a week that goes by that that's not discussed. So we think that's coming very soon.
The federal money that you're using to fund this stuff, they're not gonna let you do that until it actually changes at the federal level.
And there's other factors too, you know, such as when we finance a crop, you know, we turn not only to the crop as our collateral, but we also turn to, you know, our producers have insurance, which is federally subsidized. Well, you know, at this moment, that is not the case with him. So, you know, we are looking at that, and there's discussions almost on a weekly basis at this point about it. So we think that's coming very soon. So,
Where's the state at on it, you know? As far as what you can grow, what you can't grow, what you're allowed to.
That's a funny thing. I know that our new agricultural secretary, you know, has been pushing that, and I think there has been passage of some things, but as I understand, at least I know she's attended some meetings in Tallahassee on this, but there's some technicalities as to the degree of is it the THC or whatever?
Yeah, before
you know,
it becomes actual
right.
marijuana.
So, you know, is there anything you want to say? I know you went to one of the meetings in Tallahassee.
I mean, they're just.
She can't remember.
They're just.
She had too good a feeling.
But the odd thing is, if it goes from hemp to marijuana, right now you have to get rid of it, and they're saying burn it, which that seems kind of odd.
They've been burning it for years.
That's how you destroy the marijuana. So I don't think there's been a lot of thought process, but I know the state is having workshops. They had one in Quincy today, but we had staff so scattered that nobody could take that class. So they're doing classes, and IFAS is still researching it as far as the methods and making sure there's markets out there. And just because you have land to grow it, you got to be sure somebody's willing to buy it.
Yeah.
And then are you growing it for fiber or?
Yeah.
I don't think you can grow it for medical purposes. There's a
I
lot
know
of.
where the licensing was at for the medical portion of it.
Yeah, the license of medical, you have to be in the nursery business, and I think 30+ years experience.
Yeah, there was a pretty strict.
I heard 20 on it, and I've heard
Strict guidelines.
30. Yeah, right. Then they were talking about changing that just a couple of weeks ago to get more, I guess, fresh blood or young blood more interest in it.
Because that has to be grown indoors and controlled and security. I mean, there's a lot of expense with that, and we know the nursery people that were awarded those contracts in the state, and we're not even financing that. We had to get out if we had any relations, the farm credits within the state.
But yes, sir.
I had a question. What is the minimum size you'll do, and some of the locations? Because a lot of our clients think it's always up in the North County, and I think you and I have talked before. We actually have places in Santa Rosa County. So I guess what is the minimum, and what's some of the criteria that you can use from a location standpoint?
Okay, good question. First of all, there's really no minimum. It depends ultimately on the purpose. For example, you could have, you know, a lot long, three quarter of an acre or an acre. usually, if that's the case, we would, depending on the purpose, I mean, I've done small quantity of land who, the ultimate purpose was to put, you know, a greenhouse operation. Well, we may tackle that as an agribusiness loan. In most cases, you know, we can still do that property, but we would run it through our lot loan program, through our home mortgage division, because ultimately, usually, something of that size, you know, is relating to a future construction or something like that. So we really don't have any minimums per se, whether we look at it as an agribusiness loan or through our lot loan program. It just depends on the ultimate purpose of the project.
So a lot loan in Mary Esther, Florida, a half acre, whatever, that, and to build a house on it, that's something you can handle with, or is not something you prefer?
It depends, and I hate to say that, but what, within our ramifications, there are certain areas, certain demographics that we can't lend in. It's more open than you think though. But traditionally speaking, the way that you can look at it, I mean, you know, we traditionally don't do lots or subdivisions in a very metropolitan area. That's not who Farm Credit is. However, and we actually have maps that we have to, Sue would tell you she has to go by and look at to define, but it's more open than you think. But if you ever have a question about it, we can tell you, you know, pretty quickly whether or not that would be something we could do. But it's not real confined, but the general rule of thumb, if it's in a pretty concentrated metropolitan area, there's a pretty good chance that we couldn't do that long.
One last question, what about veterans? What can you do? Any special privileges, any special rates at all?
Well, right now, we have obviously through our home lending department, you know, we have access to VA loans. On the agribusiness side, you know, we do try to I don't say give preference, but we try to look out for our veterans. Right now, I can't say that we have a loan product specifically designed for veterans, but we certainly we try to give preferential, you know. Yes, ma'am.
Well, what we can do with the veterans, a lot of them are buying land and they've never owned acreage, and some of them, I know you've said before, want to grow their own food or get involved, and we have our Young Beginning Small Farmer program, which we do give reduced rates. You don't have to be a veteran, but a lot of veterans do utilize that program because of their purpose, as Mike said before, what they're gonna do with the property. And then we have mentors with our lenders that can help them or connect them with extension or somebody to help them grow the food, or when they have questions, or if you wanna do timber for the first time, we have people to connect you to. So we have those resources, and we do have reduced rates and down payments and fees for those type of programs. But that's for anybody getting into it. So somebody buying land for the first time, for timberland or something, we do have special programs to look at.
You alluded to VA loans. Is that for larger acres that the VA will do that? For example, you have 20 acres, because most of our veterans want to be off the grid, but that house is on 20 acres. Is that still qualify in your realm in a VA with 100% loan to value?
Yes, we can do, as long as there's just one home on the property. Because I had a call the other day, there were 2 homes on the property, and our investor wouldn't do that. But if it's acreage, you know, large acreage with a home on it, and the investor wants to apply for a VA loan, we have that product.
And it'd be 100% loan to value?
Right,
Wow.
just like
Okay.
we know.
That's cool. That's strong. No other bank will do that.
So, I just want to mention a couple. Yes.
Whenever you say certain areas that you can do this, can't do that, a half-acre lot in a subdivision in Mossy Head, would you be able to make a pre-construction loan on that and convert that into a regular loan?
In Mossy Head, I would say there's probably a real good chance.
Pretty good
Yes,
chance.
sir.
It's in a subdivision, it's only a half acre.
Yes, sir.
Perfect.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
I don't know if this is a question for you or for the Platinum team. If you're purchasing a lot with a lake on it, or maybe on, you know, with lake frontage, quite a bit of lake frontage. Is there any need, or, and if so, how would you go about measuring the health of the lake, so to speak? You know, is the water drinkable? That kind of thing.
That's a good question because I've had that. Actually, for example, keep in mind that, and I'm sure we've worked with the lender in that regard. Keep in mind, most of that is a vacant land contract, and all of these, you said, if you read through that one section with due diligence, it basically says it's on the onus of the particular buyer.
Right.
Now, granted, we have access to all these people, and believe me, there's a litany of folks that would test the water. You have to be, or your client would have to be very comfortable, because it's on their situation. Now, there is some disclosure from the seller. Hey, did I dump a 50-gallon drum out there, 30 years ago, and the lake filled up because we had a lot of rain? But there is some scientists that will do that stuff for you, but they're at risk, because if they said that this thing's clean as a whistle, of course, if it doesn't end up that way, that's what their liability insurance will address. So that's what we've had. I've actually had that a few years ago, that the same thing, it was small, actually a pond, but a couple acres, but.
So it's something you would recommend?
Well, it depends on the usage. I mean, if you just like the prettiness, or do you want to go catch brim in there, that's one thing. But if you just like the prettiness and you never plan on going to do anything with it, you'll have to manage your risk on whether or not that's something concerned. But also too, who are you affecting downstream, or who are you affecting as your neighbor? Because all of a sudden, if you own it now, you own all the risk of that thing, because there might be a spring or a small branch being a smaller water feature that might be leaking over there. So yeah, you want to make sure that, oh, well, I didn't care about it. I was just looked pretty when I'm from my deck of my house. I never go out there. Don't tell the kids to stay out there and that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's a risk thing. How do you minimize your risk?
Don't drink the water. Someone's either bathing in it or swimming in it. Guaranteed.
So, that was my answer.
Okay. I had two things I wanted to say real quickly, and then I'll entertain any other questions. Mark alluded to our cooperative, and I did too at the beginning, our cooperative model, and Mark referred to it as patronage. A lot of people don't realize or know what that is, and I wanted to go back to that very quickly. On our agribusiness loans, we do offer, and what I mean by that is our land loans, things of this nature. You can think of it as an interest rebate, and the reason I want to mention that is because the last 3 to 4 years, we've averaged around 20%, I believe, as a payback to our members of the interest, that they've earned, during the past year. So you say, well, what does that mean? Well, that means if you had a rate of 5.5%, and you're getting 20% of that back next spring, then your effective rate on your loan becomes 4.5%. So I just wanted to reiterate that a little bit, because there again, it's a little bit different model than a commercial bank, because we're cooperative. We're able to do that. The other advantage that we have for being a cooperative, a GSE instead of a state chartered bank, when you close a loan here, you do not have to pay the state doc stamps and intangible tax on your notes. Now, as you guys know, that when you get to the closing table, usually they equate somewhere around probably 55 basis points, to your borrower, or in y'all's case, your customer, on their closing costs. So that's another advantage, I guess you would say, of doing business, with us is there is a savings, at the closing table for that. So the other thing that I wanted to just very quickly set kind of an expectation, if you will, is one of the primary questions we have was, how long does this take? And we talked about surveys and different things, and that's on everybody's mind, is how long does this take? So we're gonna clear this up today. So Mark, if somebody walks in our office and says, I have, I'm looking to buy 40 acres, I can get you my stuff tomorrow. How long would you tell them this would take?
We usually say between 30 to 45 days, and that's with everything that we get from the start to the end, as long as there's no issues with title work survey, or anything like that. It usually is a, quick and easy time to get that in.
Sue, if somebody come into your office tomorrow and said, hey, I wanna make application for this home loan, what's the expectation on time?
We usually say 45 days, from the time.
So a
that
little
they
bit
get-
longer
a little
maybe
bit longer, yeah.
than what we would see on the agribusiness side. Okay, all right.
I've got a question. How often do you get all the information?
That's a good question.
A lot of times we do, but then there are times that you do have to piece it through, and that's just all usually part of it.
Right.
But a lot of times, that's why we like to give the list and let them know the sooner we get it back,
Right.
the quicker we can get it done.
Sure.
I mean, if you're missing a key piece of information, your 30 days is, it starts to go on, and especially since it's the first thing you need, for the approval. Once the approval's done, that is usually the quickest part of this, is once we get that, the approval part is usually done in just a couple days. It depends on the type of transaction that you're doing. Something that's going to be more difficult or it's more involved in it, it will take a little longer.
Do you make loans if I have other property? Can I use that for my down payment versus having to have all cash?
Very good question. The question was, if you don't have all cash to put into the transaction, can you use other property? The answer is in most cases, yes. The trick there is usually like kind. So there may be some situations, if we're looking at a piece of agricultural property, we may not want to take a commercial building, to fill that equity void. But if you had another 20 acres over here that was free and clear, can you use that as equity to put into this transaction in lieu of cash? Yes, we do a lot of that. So.
And it does involve title search on both
It does.
properties, appraisal on both properties, just like you normally would. So you would incur a little bit more cost on it, but it does allow you to purchase at it.
That's right. Good point.
I guess you have some gifts you're giving out.
We do. We actually have a few gifts we want to give out to you guys today.
Got a donut left.
We got
Yes,
Miss Maddie's
Dad.
gonna make our
Oh,
drawing.
and
We have someone who's going to make our drawing for us. So
All right,
if you
hang
would,
on, business
are we-
cards.
No, we took everybody that registered and we cut them up and stuck them in the hat, make it easy for y'all.
Never mind.
That was why we had everyone sign in. Gave Maddie
Okay.
something to do.
Is that for that new car that was sitting outside? Is that
Possibly.
There's a good salesperson.
George?
All right, that's me.
Hey.
All right. Man, this is on the fair and square. Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
There's a
Chocolate.
straw that goes with it.
Chocolate, yep.
Right, there's a straw in there
Oh.
that goes with it.
you might need that.
Yeah, suck all that chocolate out. There you go. Oh, that's good. That's good.
I'm Marilyn.
Oh, Miss Marilyn.
You know, I want you to see we were using the farm credit hat that I got a couple years ago.
That's grown by one of our farmers.
Resolution.
The honey, that's his honey.
Careful.
Do you have more?
Yes.
One more.
Okay.
I got a couple more.
I assume that's honey from our Northwest Florida, is that correct?
Yes,
It
Tupelo
is.
honey.
Good stuff.
I would assume probably a recipient of a farm credit.
Charlene?
Charlene?
She writes tiny.
That one has a spell too.
She's on the race to fine print the contracts.
Yeah, one more.
Rafina.
Good job.
The honey lady.
I thought it was the honey table.
All right. Well, we really appreciate, there again, to be able to be with you guys today, and, appreciate your attention. We all have some business cards, so if you need any of us, have any questions, whether it's on the home mortgage side or the land buying side, we'd be happy to answer it. We have a great resource with Ken and his team, just let us know if we can help you guys.
And an easy way to remember us is we can be reached at 855-GO-RURAL or visit GoRural.net and you'll go right to our website. So that's just easy to remember.
Well, we'll bring this to a close. Again, this is Platinum Lifestyle Professionals and of Coldwell Banker, and of course we have other realtors in the room as well. So the realtors are a great resource, but more than anything, if you missed the first half of this, this has been recorded. It will go out to everybody. So if there's part of the seminar you missed, you can go back on. Mike and his team will now be famous because we're going to blast it to thousands of people tonight. And again, we've had great experiences. So again, thank you for coming, and it's a wrap.
Woohoo!
Thank you.
Good job.